Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And we're going to have so much fun today. I can tell you that just from my interactions that I have had with my guest. We are just going to have a blast today, but we're going to be learning how to possibly make $1 million. And I'm not joking, folks. This is going to be a great program. And more importantly, it's going to be something that we really need to be having these discussions to think about our finances, our financial freedom, and especially how we need to be teaching our kids how to be doing this. And so please join me in welcoming George Ishee to our program today. How are you doing today, George?
I'm doing great, Deb. Thanks for having me. This is fun.
Cool. I love it. I love it. Well, let me tell people a little bit about you, and then we will dive in because I think we just piqued everybody's interest.
Okay.
So George Ishee is the founder of Millionaires by George. He has over 35 years of experience in sales and marketing and has worked for Fortune 50 companies and even startups. He has trained many salespeople, owned his own marketing company for 8 years, and was a nationally rated gymnast in college. He has 3 amazing grown children with 5 young grandkids, and he's an avid tennis player. Holy schmoly. And for those of you watching, he's at the beach right now. Gotta love Zoom backgrounds, right? So again, George, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. What a great introduction. I appreciate that.
Cool, cool. Well, I always like to ask my guests how they got to where they are today. And you have an absolutely fantastic story to share with us that talks about how it is that you really did get to where you are today. So tell us, George, what the heck?
Well, okay. It's started out, I grew up in a large family.
Mm-hmm.
I have 9 brothers and sisters,
Right.
and we're all still very close, and it's quite interesting. But, with that many kids growing up, we didn't have a whole lot, my dad was like, our wealth is you got food on the table and a roof over your head. And, and that was really good. So, if we wanted things, we just had to go get it ourselves. So what started me off was I was an entrepreneur at an early age, and I was always trying to find ways to make money. So at age 7, I came up with an incredible business idea. So here I am, 7 years old, and I found out because one day I found one of these little things, a penny.
A penny.
Okay?
Oh, wait, I've got my penny. Here's my penny. I'm
Here's
ready.
the penny. And how many people have found these on the ground and picked them up? Well, I did. I picked it up, and then I realized that, see, back then, I'm kind of an old guy. This is really true gray hair. I don't dye it. But back then, vending machines were just kind of evolving and being invented.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out that if I took this penny and I went down to the railroad tracks, and the railroad tracks were curved, and if I could lay it right on the top of the center of that, and then obviously I'd get away from the thing, and I could put my ear on the ground and hear the trains coming. But when the train would come by, it would flatten this penny out to the size of a quarter.
Ooh.
And guess what? You could use that in a vending machine. But what I was doing was taking them to school and selling them for 15 cents.
So you were making a 14-cent profit.
I was making a profit. And as they say, now I was a what? I was a true
Entrepreneur. Counterfeiter.
I didn't know it at the time, but it was, it was a way to make money. And it was, I started making a lot of money. So that's where it all started, was with the penny. So that's kind of, and through my life, I've been an entrepreneur and a salesman and marketing. And as you said, I worked for Fortune 50 company. I was a VP of marketing and sales for them, and worked with a startup and worked with a company and grew that. So, and kind of one of my claims to fame is when I took over for a telephone company, opened a branch in Atlanta for them. I literally had 100% of my sales reps over quota 5 years in a row.
Wow.
So I understand sales. And then I got bored and I started my own marketing company. I did that for 8 years. And that's kind of my background.
I love it. And so you've built this business, Millionaires by George, on the foundation of this penny.
Correct.
And so tell us a little bit more about this. Tell us why this penny is still so important in your life.
Well, that's a great question. It got more into deep thought with me because being in sales and marketing, I always had to understand and figure out why people bought what they bought, right? Because I had salespeople. And in the back of my mind, there was always this curiosity of why people struggle with money. I mean, because I went to some customers and some had a lot, some had none, or they were scrambling. And that pondered me and made me just really think. And because, there's an abundance of money in the world. There's not a shortage, but many people experienced a lifetime of shortage. And that always just kind of nagged at me, I guess.
Right.
And as I matured through sales and marketing and all this, I said, well, I got to figure out a way to do this. And so I did. And that was kind of the trigger, I guess, for me, that I wanted to change that, because it just seemed so simple that there was an abundance of money out there.
Right.
And it's just that some people just didn't get it.
Right.
And they spent their whole life like that. So that was my personal motivation for it.
And I mentioned at the start that a lot of this pertains to the discussions that we have with kids. We don't, let's be honest, I think in many cases we don't have discussions with our kids about how to raise money. Now, your dad got a little annoyed at you for your penny thing, but it's, we're not now, I think you and I are fairly close in age. I don't, way back then, I don't remember being taught in school, here's how to have a checking account. Here's how to do all of this. And now they don't do it at all. In fact, a lot of kids never even have checking accounts, which that just baffles me. And we're not even going to talk about crypto because that makes my brain hurt. But, we're expected to just kind of know, how to be doing these things. And so talk to us a little bit more about that.
Well, you're exactly right. What happens, which, I'm a parent, I got 3 amazing grown kids. But while I was going through this discovery process, I started to understand, and I went to a lot of speakers. I've met Tony Robbins and Bob Proctor, bless his heart, and all, a whole plethora of these guys. And they kept talking about your subconscious,
right?
But you can never get to that. And I dug deeper into that, and I studied and I listened to these guys and what they're really saying. And what I discovered, but they were all saying it, is our belief systems are developed at a very early age.
Right.
They're from like 1 to 5 is where your beliefs are really pretty much formed and locked in, because you're watching and listening and learning and absorbing from the people you love or respect or cherish. And most of the time that's your parents or friends or whatever. But unfortunately, things aren't inherited through generations. And if I found out, even when I was growing up, as well as our family was loved and et cetera, we were hearing things like, we can't afford that. That's out of our price range.
Right.
We'll get that next year. Money's the root of all evil. Rich people are greedy. And you hear all these things as kids, and that data gets locked into your brain. And that belief, once it becomes a belief and it gets enough data to say, okay, I believe it, you will keep that belief the rest of your life until you replace that data. Does that make sense?
Right.
Okay. And so I had to figure out a way to get to that subconscious and change it, because that's where I tell people now, I say, you're only 5 inches away from success. They go, 5 inches. I go, yeah, from here to here.
So ear to ear.
It's that thing in between the 5 inches that was locked in at an early age, and it just stuck there, and that, unfortunately, if you can find a way to change and get in to replace that data, and it doesn't take long. I mean, you can replace it in 30 days with the right approach. But most people didn't understand that. And that was one of the aha moments when I started this process.
Right. And you're so right. We get, and I think especially as kids, we are, for the most part, told that money is good. We want to have money, but excess is not good. It's being greedy. It's all of these things. And I think our parents and the people around us, they're not doing it to hurt us. They're trying to prepare us for the future. By saying, live within your means.
Yes.
And all of these things, instead of saying, why don't you want more? It's okay to want more.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And you kind of touched on a point of our parents. They want to do the right thing.
Right.
But nobody ever told them what to do.
Right.
And
you and I, our parents were in the Depression. So they had a very different view of money. There was not excess for them.
Yes. But even parents today, even young parents, I have young children, I have grandkids now, so they're parents, and you have to stop and think, how were they trained, or how did they learn? In the parents, there's no rule book how to raise kids, especially about money.
Right.
And many people, today that you run into they just have more month and money, as I call it. Somebody, I heard that, and they struggle. And, Tony Robbins said the right thing. He said, whatever in life you focus on expands, whatever fills your mind expands. And if you're thinking about, oh, I got bills, and oh, I got debt, and more debt, guess what you get more of? More debt. And it works that way. So how do you shift somebody from a mind of debt into abundance? Fill their mind with abundance. When you start to do that, that's where a shift changes. So it's quite fascinating about how the psychology of all that works. And it's very few people ever get exposed to it, which is amazing.
Yeah. And I think, our parents always want us to do better than they did.
Yes.
And, it doesn't matter when they were, we all want that. I mean, I'm sure your kids want better for their kids. And it's not saying there's anything wrong with what they have. You just want them to have better. But it is interesting, it's that say you're giving your kid an allowance, they get $5 a week. Do they have to earn it? Do they have chores? Do they just get the $5 a week? What if they can do extra? Then can they earn extra money? And then it's also, what do they do with it when they have it? Do they save it? Do they, is that their money to buy their school clothes with? Or are you going to buy their school clothes and, and that money is their fun stuff? All of those things, that just, as you said, that gets ingrained into us when we're very little.
And what's crazy is the number one fear that parents have about parenting is, getting their child through adulthood, and they work so hard to do that. And they say the years, the days crawl by, but the years fly by. And all of a sudden they're graduating from high school or college. And the number one hidden fear that the parents have is, will my kid make it?
Right.
Will they be financially secure? Or are they going to struggle and fight with that too? And that, the fear of that, the parents thinking, well, I didn't do enough to teach my child how to become successful, in everything from society to financial to et cetera. and so they try to do a blending of things as they're growing up. You have savings accounts, they do work, they do chores, and many people do it different ways. I mean, I even had a friend that what he did, he said at age 9, he told his kids, you're gonna have to pay for half of everything that you own. And he said when his daughter turned 9, she said, Dad, I want to go to the and get a gift for a birthday party. And he said, how much money do you have? She goes, well, Dad, I don't have a job. And he said, well, clean your room and I'll pay you double as a bonus. And it clicked.
Right.
And now that guy, his daughter has grown up and she's financially secure and she watches money and she's got tons of money and she has abundance in her life about the idea of money. And now her kids are getting that. So it was quite interesting.
Well, and it is hard because, you don't want your children to go without.
Yes.
But it is those extra things, or even just the difference between, the Walmart brand of jeans and Levi's, with things like that. It's not been all that long ago that Shaquille O'Neal was in the news because he's a pretty wealthy dude. And he has said, my kids will not inherit.
Yeah.
And and people, oh my gosh, and he said, I earned this, they didn't.
Yes.
And that is and part of why parents are earning money, if it's if they've got extra, is because they do want to leave it in many cases to their kids. But it's funny because we've got the ultra wealthy who are like, nah, my kids aren't getting that. I think we've seen that with quite a few of them. They don't want their kids to be destitute and out on the street, but it's like, don't you be planning on being a millionaire when I die.
Well, most kids that inherit it, they lose it.
Right.
Because they did not go through the process of
they
learning.
Didn't earn it.
Well, it's not even just earning it. What's deeper than earning it is the process of understanding money. Because money, I asked somebody in some of my seminars, I say, if I gave you $1 million, would you be happy? They're like, yeah. I said, but what if it was $1 million of monopoly money?
Right.
They go, well, that's not money. I say, well, of course, what money represents is the wealth of the value that you're providing. So if you're providing value for somebody, and every business in America, what they've understood, and every startup business has understood the fundamentals of capitalism, where they say, well, I'm going to get this or buy this or deliver this, and I'm going to put value to it, and then I'm going to sell it to somebody else, and that's how it works. Right. And understanding that is one of the fundamental things to success of money. It's not that there is an abundance of money, but that's one of the things you have to have to get it. But nobody's ever told you how to do it. Nobody told your parents, nobody told your grandparents. Some people just did it through hard work and they stumbled through it, but there wasn't a process.
Right.
That's what I was looking to develop.
Right. And it's that process, it's learning. And, and there are, the thing to remember too is, and you talk about this in your materials, sometimes you go backwards. And I think that's one of the things that people have, and I don't care if they're 5 years old or, 95, that's hard, we've certainly seen a lot of struggles with that in the last couple of years because of COVID, because, there've been all sorts of things. It's funny, some of the, like my accountant, she just, when she looks at stuff, she's like, you're not spending money. And, and I'm like, isn't that a good thing? But when she looked at it, she said, actually, it was not always a good thing because the taxes. But, because we weren't doing things, so normally, we'd be attending meetings, we'd be spending the $30 to go do that. I laugh. I think I should have kept track just in my head as to how much money I saved by not going to Starbucks a couple times a week.
Oh yeah.
Because I did before the pandemic, I would, go through the drive-through, usually a couple times a week, on my way to a meeting or from a meeting.
All right.
And I also would have meetings at Starbucks. Well,
Yeah.
those went away. And so, even if it was just $20 a week, that adds up. And I remember going to a financial planning seminar one time where they said, okay, take that $20, buy your can of Folgers coffee, and and then you've got all the money and then do what
Right.
you want for the rest of the month. And and not to knock Starbucks, but I think that's one of the things is we get used to going and spending that, and then we don't stop to think, well, what if we don't do that?
Well, the key is you never own money.
Right.
You're always, it's coming in and going out, and
Mhm.
everybody spends their whole life doing that. But what the wealthy people figured out was they were going to pay themselves first and keep a little bit first.
Right.
And I had a guy that it was amazing. Right after I got married, when I was very early on, and we'd bought our first house and struggled to get it. And it was not a very expensive house in a not expensive neighborhood. But the guy next door to me, I got to know him, and he was a multimillionaire. And I was like, well, what are you doing in this neighborhood? Yeah, I was like, what are you doing in this neighborhood? And he was like, well, he goes, I was a multimillionaire, and then I got divorced, and she took everything. And he said, and so I downscaled to this. And he goes, and I've been here 2.5 years. And he said, I'm a multimillionaire again. And I was like, whoa. And he said the secret was to spend a nickel less than you make. And he said, pay yourself that nickel,
Right.
and then reinvest it. And that's what he did. And he had that knowledge and understanding of money. And that kind of triggered me too. That was another one of those little triggers that started to put this whole process together. Because I was right next door to a millionaire and had no idea. Right. Our houses were 100. They were just in the early hundreds of thousands of dollars, if you can remember that far back. But it was almost well over our head to afford that for newly married. But here's a guy that multimillionaire right next door, and that's what he learned that lesson. He shared it.
Right. And unfortunately, one of the lessons that we seem to have a lot of is that debt is okay.
Yeah.
And probably 5-6 times a week, I get, envelopes in the mail, apply for this credit card, apply for that, they go in the little shredder but we somehow we think it's okay to be carrying all of this debt. And in a lot of cases, there's really no incentive not to. But we also, like when our kids go off to college, apply for loans. It's okay. Apply for all those loans.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that seems great until 20 years after you get your degree, you're still paying off your loan. And we have the competition thing going too. Well, they got a new car, so I need a new car.
Right.
And so it's not just that we need to know the value of money. It's that we need to be so, we need to be self-assured enough to think, okay, just because they got a new car doesn't mean I have to have a new car, but also to really think, do we need to go into debt to do this?
Yeah, that's the key. It's okay to have a new car. Okay. And sometimes debt is good. And I always laugh. People say, well, why did you pay your house off? And they said, because you're losing that tax break.
Right, there's a tax benefit.
But then I asked him, I said, well, explain to me how you pay $1, and you get 20 cents back. Right. I'm like, I'd rather just keep the dollar and, pay them whatever, instead of paying 80% of that dollar that I made, I'll pay them, 25 or 33%, whatever the tax bracket is, and keep all the rest. And they're like, oh, but I never looked at it like that.
Right. But they wanted to finance us. Well, of course they did.
And financing is okay because what people have done is taken money and they've added value to it and then resell it. That's the capital way. So, if everybody in the world stopped financing, money would stop changing hands, and we'd probably go into a little bit of debt. Depression. So you have to keep money churning. But the secret is it's okay to churn it.
Mm-hmm.
Just make sure that you're not going the wrong direction.
Right.
Be building your savings instead of depleting every month. And that's, unfortunately, that's what a lot of people do. They, they have more bills than they have money, and that causes tremendous stress.
Right.
And the children see that every month.
Yeah. Mom and dad are
adults
fighting. We're not sure why, but mom and dad are fighting.
Yeah, but they're seeing it, and it's about money. Money's the number one cause of divorce.
Right.
So, it's the problem has not been solved yet,
right,
to where it's common knowledge. So we're working to fix that.
Right. Yeah. And it is money. I mean, the fight might be over the new dress or the sports tickets that somebody bought. But it's, that cost that was what the fight was really over.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny that you can go look in the market, and one of the interesting things, they always say one man's junk's another man's, profit. And, you can shop because people will sell things for, less than they paid for it, less than market value.
Right.
And when you understand that, then you got a real good understanding of that money. And all those problems that you're mentioning start to fade away when you get that.
Right.
Some people call it a good deal. Some people call it right timing. Some people call it, I deserve that.
Right.
And some say, I'm not good enough for that. So it's all how they look at it, and it's their perception of what it is. So again, that's all tied in that little 5-inch window.
Right. And it comes back to, what did you see when you were 6 years old, or in your case, 7 years old?
Yep.
And you learned at 7 that you could turn a profit, and you weren't supposed to be squashing those pennies like that. But yeah, I mean, it was same thing happens with, the kid that sells lemonade and, all of those things.
Sure.
It's about how do we take what we have and make more. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. And it's understanding how to create value. I mean, I had a newspaper route after that, and that's the same thing. There's a newspaper company, found a guy that delivered it, paid him a little money, and brought news to the end user who would pay more value for it. So it's very critical. It seems common sense, but putting the extra 2 dots together to make it a circle is all we're missing. I mean, it's an amazing, it's an exciting concept in time right now to be able to do this, even myself.
Yeah. And it's interesting, when I talk with youngsters, when I see youngsters, it's funny, we all go, ew, millennials. Well, you know what? Maybe it's the millennials that I talk with, but they're all pretty sharp. And one of the things that I've really noticed with them is that they're scaling back. They are thinking about what is important to me. They want to work with companies that are socially responsible. They're not going into huge debt. All of these things. And, and I think it's, in a lot of ways, it's because they saw that their parents, us, got into those issues. And, and these smart kids went, maybe we need to watch that. Yeah.
Yeah. And the kids are smart nowadays, but there's kids that are smart, and there's kids that don't have the opportunity for smarts.
Right.
Some go to college and some don't, and there's a plethora of good jobs out there that even aren't college educated, but what was left out was the money education, and that's kind of a big difference, because, and you ask people, you say, well, how did this guy go from 0 to nothing with no education? How did he do that? Well, it was hard work and common sense, and he applied himself, and he had desire, and he had drive, and he had need to get better, and unfortunately there are some entitlement, kids growing up out there that say, well, my parents got the millions and I'm going to get it, so why do I need to do something?
Oh yeah.
And that's
and the problem is that we see them on TV and we think, doesn't that look cool, right?
Yeah.
And I see those shows. I mean, I do not watch any of those shows. Those shows drive me nuts. But yeah, it's like, no, you're not entitled to it. Even if
Right.
your parent dies, they don't have to leave it to you.
Yep. Well, but you want your kids to get something. Every parent does.
Right. Yeah.
I
And like
don't
I
care if
said,
it's
you don't want to leave them destitute.
I don't
But-
care if it's a lot or a little,
Mhm.
that's why you have kids, because they become such a passion.
Right.
It's crazy. So
Yeah. And some of the discussions that we need to have with them, I'm big on college education. I actually have 3 degrees. But like my undergrad degree is in social science. Yeah, you do a lot with that. But I think we also need to be having the discussions about trade schools and things
Yes.
like that. I mean, there are so many plumbers, people like that
Yeah.
many people look down on, who are the millionaires,
Yeah.
and it's like they're just good, honest, hardworking people.
Yep.
And they go and they do the job.
And it's part of that is very key, because a lot of jobs, it used to be that if you did a job that required you to work with your hands, you didn't make as much money. But if you did a job that required you to use your head, you got more doctors, lawyers, all that kind of. But that's model shifted now. There's because there's such a shortage, children that work hard, they have a chance to make a lot of money. Now they got the money coming in, and then it's all right. Well, what do I do to work it to keep some of that?
Right.
Because they still got expenses too. They got rent, and food, and insurance, and all that savings and all that good stuff.
Right.
But that education is still missing.
Right.
And that's in both, levels of people, from, jobs where they're using their head, or jobs when they're using their hands or their body, or whatever,
Yeah. Well, talk to us about the process that you have developed, because it's 28 steps. And folks, this is not 28 days. This is a 28-step process that takes however long you want it to take. But so talk to us, so again, it starts with this little penny. So let's go through this. Talk to us about the 28-step process.
So here's what I say to people. I say, how many of you have found a penny and picked it up? Probably 90% of the people I talk to say, yep, I've done that. And there's a whole host of reasons. They say, I pick them up, I pick every 5th one up, or every now and then somebody says, no, I don't pick it up.
It's not worth it. Nah, who needs a penny?
Then I ask them, I say, okay, you got a penny. And I said, did you turn it into $1 million? They go, no. I go, oh, darn, you did 2 of the 3 things, you were so close,
You found the penny, you picked it up. And
Yay. But see, what people don't understand. So here's my sales pitch that I use now. I say, I can teach anybody to make $1.3 million. It's really $1,342,177.28 in 2 to 4 years. So it's, if you do 4 years, that's less time than it took you to graduate from high school, working just part-time, and you can't use your own money.
Right.
And people look at me and go, wow, how do you do that?
Well, I'm going to rob a bank.
I started my own thing, and I realized I found a penny. Okay. And that penny was thrown down on the ground by an investor for me. 20 people walked by that penny and ignored it, and I picked it up. And that was my investment money. Was that my own money? No, it was somebody else's money. Okay. And then I said, well, if there's an abundance of money, and if I really wanted to become wealthy, how hard would it be to take that penny and double it to 2 cents? Okay. Would that be hard or easy? And everybody I talk to says easy.
Right.
Okay, great. And I said, how about 2 cents to 4 cents? Easy. 4 cents to 8 cents. And if you just take the mathematics of it and you double that penny just 28 times, not in 28 days, like you say, but 28 times, it mathematically equals 1,342,000 and change. And you can't argue with the math.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
because it's just 2 times 2 times. Yeah.
That's the first step. The second step is, growing up, we all heard about money was hard to get. We couldn't afford that. And all these scripts that were plugged into our brain, they slid right into our brain and fell into the slots, and that became our belief system. So we have to change the belief system, and that's controlled because your subconscious is there to protect us.
Right.
It doesn't want us to do things that could do harm to us. So if somebody said, well, take this silly penny and double it to $1 million, your brain goes,
your brain goes, no.
You can't do that. Nobody's ever done it. So forget it. And it self-sabotages you. And how many people have been self-sabotaged out there, for
All
seeing
of us.
similar types of stuff? All of us. You're right. Okay. So we have to do that. So I found out and studied all about the subconscious. And if you believe it or not, if you double a penny 10 times in 30 days, which only gets you to $5.12, which is, everybody believes that's doable.
Right.
You actually will re-script your subconscious mind about doubling because you've done 10 times in a short time of period, and you actually replace that data where the brain says, okay, yeah, you can double. When you go from a penny to 2 cents, it goes, yeah, you can do that. That's no harm. How about 2 to 4 cents? No harm. 8 to 16, 16, 32, etc. So if you do that penny, so you challenge that, say, all right, from the moment I find a penny, I want to double it 10 times to get to $5.12. And that will get to that left side that your brain connects to the subconscious, and it will replace that data where your brain will never, ever question, can I double?
Right.
Because
you're used to it.
Common sense so far? So then the final piece to the equation is the brain shifts to the right side, to the creative side, and goes, well, how do you do it?
Right. Yeah, how do I take this penny and how do I even make it into 2 cents?
Right. So if you don't know how, then your subconscious goes, don't try it, and it self-sabotages again. So the way to get around that is I developed a software system, and this is so simple, so common sense. Again, anybody can do this. So, but first, let me ask you, because I got to ask if you're qualified enough to do this. Okay. So I'm going to put you on the line for a minute.
Okay.
Let's see. And this is a question to everybody, all your listeners. Could you go to a yard sale this weekend and find something in your heart that you could sell for $10 and offer them $5? Could you do that?
Sure.
Woo! You made it. You qualify. Woo! That's the fundamental concept, is understanding what the market would pay for something.
Okay.
Okay. And then making them an offer for less and then selling it for more. And that's what you do. So what we did, we made a software program, a very expensive software program, by the way.
Of course.
Of course, to get into this, because if I was going to charge you how to walk you through to get to $1 million, you'd pay a lot, right?
Right. So I'm not going to give you just $2.
Right. So what the software does when you log in, let's use the yard sale example again. So let's say you've found something you knew could sell for $10. You offered them $5, and they said, sure, you might have made 3 different offers, but they sold you something. And then you jumped, let's say, on eBay and turn around and sold it. And we can show you how to do that, for $10. So you would log into your account and you say, here's what I did. And describe it in great detail and hit save. And when you save it, it adds your answer to step 10, right?
Right.
It's a community-based system. And here's the secret sauce that pulls it all together. Ready? When you submit that, then the software opens up and shows you everybody else's answer in the system ahead of you, how they completed the step you're about to start. So
you're not just fumbling around.
So I don't care where you're in the system at step 2, 15, or 25. You always have answers from somebody else ahead of you that work for them. If it worked for them, you pick one and say, oh, I like that idea. And you copy it and you go to step 11, log it in. Now you're helping the people behind you and all the people ahead of you helping you. It's just common sense.
Right.
And it's just a fun idea.
Right.
But it's all common sense. The software is live and we're now doing it and starting to get people to turn it into like a game and play the game. getting groups of people together and doing it together. So that's
well, and that's where it gets your kids involved, because the kids like the games.
Yes. So picture now you're a parent, and one of your lifetime goals is to make sure your children have enough money and the knowledge to make it over and over again when they're grown up. That's a life goal that touches your heart. So what if, as a parent, you started playing this with your kids and you taught them using this system, the understanding of money, and they learn it as they go. And then when they get there, and let's say they make one of my things that I ask people is, when you hit step 28, you make 1,342,000. I say, now what I'd like you to do is ask you to donate $1 million back to society. And that leaves you 342,000. So you take half of that, which is step 25. You play it again, but you start at 25 and you do 26, 27, 28 the next year, make another 1.3 million, donate another $1 million, and that's your new job for the rest of your life.
Right.
I mean, and I ask people, I say, could you live on $175,000 a year? And they go, yeah. But I laugh because I had one lady, she was so cute. She goes, well, I don't know if I did that, if I could give away $1 million. And I said, oh, you got that money mental virus still. She goes, what mental virus? And I said, keep playing the game. I said, take that 1.3 million, play it another year, make 2.6 million.
Right. Then could you give away $1 million?
And I said, if you can't then play it one more year and go to 5 million, then you could give away $1 million. She started laughing. She goes, yeah, I see what you're saying. It's right. And I go, but you know how to do it because you just did it and you're doing it over and over and over again. Right. You know, now you can also create pods of people and start to help them become successful. Right. And by the way, as it's built and you're playing it, you've learned it, it now will last for generations. Your grandkids and great grandkids will say, oh, I can do it. Grandpa did.
Right.
And so, yeah. Simple as that.
So the concept really is the doubling of things. And
we're using the penny as a guideline. The real concept is understanding what the market will pay for something. Just like you go into a yard sale, shortcutting it by letting other people tell you what the value is because they just did it.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we have this great young friend back in Colorado who started doing exactly what you said. When he was a little bitty kid, he went with his grandma to garage sales. And he got the toys that were still in the box. So that was the value. And, you know, and usually, you know, he's this cute little kid. And so they dicker, you know, and they always thought, you know, oh, he doesn't have much money and we don't want to deal with this anymore. So fine, take it for $1. And then he would sell it on eBay for 10, 20, you know, whatever. And so he learned that very early. And I remember it was so funny when we moved, you know, he was a teenager and my husband had a box of books. And now my husband collects first edition books, but these were not valuable first edition books. You know, these were, you know, but he said, hey, you know, do you want these? You can do what you want with it. Sure. So he takes this box of books. And now I'm from Colorado. So see, we're horse traders out there. And so, you know, so he starts finagling and he trades this and he trades that, and he keeps trading up each time. And so he wasn't getting money. He was trading things for things. Right. But, you know, it was the same concept. And it was so interesting because he took that box of books that wasn't really worth all that much and ended up with a computer. You know, and I mean, it baffled us that he did that. And he was not in any way ripping people off. You know, they paid what they thought was a good value for it, or they traded, you know, something. And he just kept doing that till and his goal, like, you know, that your goal is the 1.3 million. His goal was the computer.
Well, here's another great story. If you haven't heard, but there's a story about the little red paperclip. There's a guy from England named Kyle McDonald. And what Kyle did, he said he had this little red paperclip on his desk, and he one day said, I wonder if I could trade this paperclip up enough times by bartering that I could trade for a house free and clear.
Right.
And he did it. And if you go and just research the little red paperclip on Google, you'll find his story. He tells you exactly.
It's on your website.
Oh, yes, it is. But I had to put it on there. But I do have a website, but I put him on there and honor him because he's already done it. I mean, this is not some smoke and mirrors. It's not some. I heard someone said, "Well, is this a Ponzi scheme?" And I went, "Absolutely not. It's all about you. There's no Ponzi in it. It's about you changing this and a community people always ahead of you, helping you to that next step."
Right.
And that's the key. And Kyle McDonald did it. It's a fascinating. He started with this little fish, thing that was crazy. And he did some crazy stuff. But go look at the website and watch the story. There's my story there and his right beside it. But this is real, folks. This is changing what's going to happen to the family unit. It's going to change to individuals who are struggling for money. And I tell people, just take your age, whatever it is right now, add 4 years to it, and picture that you have everything that you need now, because money was not the roadblock anymore.
Right.
And that's what people don't have, that vision, because they didn't have something to say. Like, if words that you say matter. Like, so if I say, all right, Deb, don't think about a big gray elephant. Don't think about it.
Then, of course, all I think about is the big gray elephant.
Right. But what's the word don't look like? You can't picture it.
Right.
So your brain skips past don't, and it says big gray elephant. So the words that you focus in your brain constantly of abundance and wealth and what other people have done, you believe it's true because they've already done it, which is true, and you can copy it. It's just you become a copy machine, but you have fun because you're practicing the skill of understanding what the market will pay for over and over and over again, first in little transactions, but then bigger and bigger. And people go, can I take a big jump, from 40,000, 80,000? How do I do that? Well, it's real simple. Maybe you're doing it with cars or houses, whatever. Well, you buy 4 cars or 4 houses.
Right.
And
it's
then
not one thing has to double to that.
Right.
It's that amount doubles.
Yeah. And then you can log in and you can say, I had to do it with 4 cars that I bought. They're exotic cars or small homes or whatever. And, that's really easy to understand, and people go, well, I what if I lose the money? Well, you lose it. Life
so
happens.
You go back a couple steps.
Yeah, you go back a couple steps. Or if you have a tragedy in your life where you need money, you pull the money out and you start over. I mean, you're learning that gift of understanding money, and you keep that for the rest of your life.
Right.
Oh, by the way, I told people, and I forgot this. I'm sorry. I said it was a very expensive program. I was just kind of really kidding. It's not about the money. This is kind of like a give back for me. It really is an investment of a hand. It's $5 a month.
Wow. I don't know, George. I don't know. that just seems like an awful lot. And so that $5 gives you access to this network of people.
Yes. And there's a Facebook group that's joining that you can be in that group that can share ideas. And if $5 a month is too much, you can, that's $60 a year. Well, you can
back
pay
to
for
my Starbucks thing, I can do
Starbucks,
that.
And now you can pay for a year and get a 20% discount.
Right. And it is the whole concept is about finding something that someone values more.
Yes.
And I like that, and I think part of it is like when we're figuring out our own salaries to charge. I mean, people that are doing things, like me, they're an independent business person, and trying to figure out what to charge is always one of the hardest concepts in the world. And so many people undercharge.
Yeah.
And a big part of that is they think, well, I don't have the experience, so I can't charge that. Or, oh my gosh, I don't want to seem greedy. Back to what we were saying before.
It's they don't see their own value.
Right.
That's it. It's all about the value. Even, if that was the case, Mercedes would go out of business.
Right.
Because it's a car, right?
Yeah.
But they put value into it about prestige and
right. Yeah. You're not just
liability.
buying the car.
Yeah. I mean, you can outrun a Toyota longer than a Mercedes, hands down. You get a little electric car now that'll go 500,000 miles. And so understanding value is what is a principle that people learn out of this model that we put together.
Yeah. You know, years ago, I worked for a marketing agency. And one of the things that the founder told us was you charge what the market will bear.
Correct.
And I was fairly young and I wasn't quite sure what he said or what he meant. And so he said, it's because we never told people we charge X amount. Yeah. It was never on our website. It was never, anywhere posted anywhere that our rates were X. And he said, because it's different for each customer. He said, if we're doing a project for a nonprofit, we charge them less. He said, if we're doing a project for, say, doctors and lawyers, they expect to pay more. So they will pay more. But more importantly, if you charge them less, they don't value it as much. So, if we tell them, okay, we're going to charge you $500 an hour, that's maybe what they charge when they do things. And so they're thinking, okay, this is important. And so then they respond when you say, hey, you have to meet this deadline. We need you to do this. They do. If we charged them $50 an hour, they go, ugh, that's not worth much. So I'm going to ignore your deadlines. I'm not going to take your phone calls, all of those various things. And, and obviously I remember this. I mean, this was quite a long time ago that I learned this. And I think it's so important because it's not, again, you're not taking advantage of anyone. You're charging them what they expect to pay in order to value it.
It's funny you bring that up because we all live through that constantly. When you go to McDonald's, if you go to McDonald's, why does a double cheeseburger cost more than a cheeseburger?
Right. Because you get double the beef. Yeah.
Well, it's more value. And so we all experience that. A small Coke is cheaper than a bigger Coke because you get more Coke.
Now we like sales. Sales are good things.
Sure. Yes.
But we also understand you're paying for what you get.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny when you look at people, when they evaluate themselves, nobody wants to pay the highest amount. Nobody wants to pay the lowest amount, but people like to try to find something in the middle and then get a little bit below off of that. And it becomes that good deal. So if somebody's struggling in my marketing, that's what I would tell them, is find out. And the way to tell what's the right amount is when they stop placing orders with you.
Right.
You're raising it until they stop. And when it stops,
hit that threshold.
Yeah. And that's how you figure what the market will pay. You put something on eBay or you put it out on Craigslist or you put it on Nextdoor or whatever. If it doesn't sell, and it's like I met Bernie Marcus, founder of Home Depot, and when he bought the Atlanta team, the Falcons, he they didn't have any people in the stands, right? Because the Falcons were terrible.
Right.
He said, and then 2 years later, he had the stands full, and somebody interviewed him, and I asked him the same question when I met him. I said, "Well, how did you get so many people in the stands?" He said, "Well, it was the same thing at Home Depot." He said, when we had a basket of hammers, he said, if they weren't selling, we just kept lowering the price till they sold. He said,
so it's the Walmart theory.
Yeah. And he said, we had all these upper seats that were vacant. He said, so I offered them for $10. Everybody came.
Right.
And that got the fans. The fans got excited. The football players.
And then you can start raising the price.
And then he raised the prices. And now they're full price up in the upper stands, and they make a lot of money. So it's just that's part of understanding money, and that's what my kind of goal is to help people and help their children as a family. And we're starting to call it family wealth, because when you make your family wealthy together, then everybo's on board, and the kids growing up, then they grow up and have the financial wherewithal that you're free to let them fly and throw them out of the nest and they actually fly,
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's
And they know
that's,
how to take care of themselves.
yes,
That's the thing. Mhm.
they're not, they're not worried about money anymore.
Mhm.
Thank God for me, I have three amazing kids,
Mhm.
and they're all financially well above
Mhm.
the yardstick. And,
Mhm.
if something ever happened to me, they could take care of me easily.
Mhm. I know that's kind of the thing is, I need them to make enough money so that they can take care of me, right?
I've already got one of she's like, well, Dad, you can come live with me.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, I could, I'm not there yet, but
Yeah, no. And
yeah, maybe in about 20 years. Okay. Something like
right,
that. But,
right.
yeah, so that's kind of it.
Yeah. And it's always funny to think about what people value. I mean, I remember I was, proposing to an organization that I belonged to. They wanted me to speak at one of their events. And, that was great. That was fabulous. And I said, thank you very much. My fee is, and I got silence. And so, of course, my first thought was, uh-oh, I asked for too much, right? But her response was, well, you
That's all.
charge? You
Oh.
charge? And I said, well, of course I charge. And she said, but this is what you love to do. And and I said, I love to do it, but I also love to pay my bills.
Right.
And that and I ended up not speaking for them because they would not trade, they would not do anything. She said, oh, we never pay. And I said, okay, then a year's membership,
Yeah.
things like that, things that
Sure.
wouldn't cost them.
Had
And
value.
she
Yeah.
just, yeah. And so they didn't see the value in me, and
Yeah.
I wasn't telling him it was $20,000. I mean,
Right.
but yeah, I got the biggest kick out of that. And, when she said, but you love doing what you do. And I'm like, yeah, but I can't very well tell that to my mortgage company.
Yeah. Yeah. I just ask people, do you work for free?
Mhm.
They go, no. They
Right.
go, why not? Why not?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because that's just the way society is. And,
Right.
once you understand the money, you
Mhm.
tap into that abundance world,
Right. Mhm.
because there's plenty of money out there.
Mhm. Right.
There's extra money out there. There's
Mhm.
money, a very
It grows on
wise,
trees.
a very wise lady, Laura Langemeyer. If you get people haven't heard of her,
Mhm.
she coaches women about financially. She's been doing it forever, but she told me one of the wisest things, and I give her 100% credit.
Mhm.
Laurel, thank you. But she was saying that um, I'm blanking out on it right now.
Uh-oh.
But she was telling me I remember now. She was saying that most people who made their first $1 million,
Mhm.
she said they all had one thing in common. I went, just one thing?
Mhm.
She goes, yeah. And me being some guys like talking to this millionaire, and she goes, I said, well, would you mind sharing it? And she goes, sure. And she told me the wisest advice. She said, if it's not your genius, it's not your job.
Mm.
And I thought about it for a minute. She said, if you're the sales guy and you don't have money, go team up with somebody who's got a lot of money and no idea. If you're terrible at accounting, get somebody that's their genius and bring them in as part of your team. And you can barter to get them on the team or not. And she said, but all the successful people surrounded themselves with people that had their genius was what was missing out of the group.
Mhm.
She goes, those are the only ones that got the million. And over the first $1 million, she goes, it was easy.
Right.
And then you had more money to pay them and reward them, et cetera.
Mhm.
And that's how, and I just thought that was genius. So Laurel Langmeyer, she's brilliant. And I have to thank her for that, because that was a lesson that stuck with me
Mhm.
forever.
I love it. I love it. Well, oh my gosh, George, we have just a couple minutes left. So if we've piqued someone's interest and they want to talk to you more about this, how do they find you?
Oh, go to cell number 5. No, the go to my website. My name is George.
Mhm.
And so we've named it, like my thing here says, millionairesbygeorge.com. And if you want to talk to me, just put a comment in there or register and sign up. Or I do webinars that you can register on a webinar to hear. I have about a 30-minute presentation that goes through the whole system. But the website, millionairesbygeorge.com, is pretty self-sufficient. I mean,
Right, there's great content there.
Yeah, and it explains it all to you. It's very simple. And then once you join up, again, it's a whopping $5 a month. So it's not about the money. It's about getting an education. And I tell people, have you ever heard of an MBA? And you said you had one. So I ask people, I say, what's involved in an MBA? You spend about 2 years of your life, probably 20 or 30 hours a week. You go in debt $50,000 to $100,000, and then when you get out, what do you got to show for it? You get a piece of paper. It says, good luck, go make your first penny when they're laying free on the ground. But in defense of that, I mean, a lot of people that get them, they do get more money for that role, but it still takes you a long time to pay back that $50,000 or $100,000. So then I say, if you get an MBG,
Millionaire by George.
If you do it in 4 years, it's 4 times 60, it's $240 in 4 years or 2 years, half that. And you come out, you got 1.3 million in the bank and the knowledge to do it over
to
and over.
Continue it.
I say, why do you need an MBA when you can get an MBG?
I love it. I love it. Well, George, have you got any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
I got a question for you. It's my favorite question. So what did you like best about what you heard today?
I like that it was not nearly as complicated and as scary as it seemed like it would be.
That's good. Great summary of that. So Debbie, thank you so much. I see why you're so popular, and thank you for having me on as a guest. I feel special and touched.
Well, you are special. You are. This has been absolutely delightful. And I hope that we have made people really think about this, because that's the key to this, is to just sit down and think, how could we do this?
And the beauty of it is they can do this. I've given them the secret. They can go do this themselves. They don't need me. But most people find that when they get the community help, that when they see what's done for others, it's a no-brainer. So we just encourage people to get in and start developing this family wealth.
I love it.
That's really, really important to me. When my days are long and gone, and this is generations down the road, I look at it, it will be my give back to society. So that's why I'm driving it.
I love it. I love it. Well, I have been having an absolutely delightful conversation with George Ishee of Millionaires by George. I'm Deb Creer, and until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.